Uh, Kourtney, Catherine, the floor is all yours. Feel free to start the session, and we'll do it just like last time.
All right.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name's Kourtney. I'm a senior biochemistry major.
I'm Catherine. I'm a biology major, the secondary music performance.
And today our presentation is 5th to 7th grade student performance based off of Kahoot questions. So for those of you that don't know, Kahoot is a game-based learning platform where the students can engage in based off of the teacher's questions. So we have two main questions that we were looking at for this experiment. So the first question is, how well do the students from 5th to 7th grade students perform based off of a type of questions asked during a Kahoot session? So as you can see in figure 1, we have 4 different types that we looked at. So true and false, identify and distinguish between two, which is kind of comparing and contrasting between two objects, definition in fact, and application. And then our second main question was, how well do these students perform based off of the amount of questions asked in the classroom setting? So we compared 2 different Kahoots. Say one of them had 2 question types, so true and false and application, compared to a Kahoot session that had 3 question types, such as definition, identify, and true or false. And we kind of compared those 2 Kahoot sessions to see if students perform better or worse, depending on the amount of questions. So we looked at pre-recorded Zoom lectures from previous years in Waco, and kind of looked at those pre-recorded sessions to get our data.
Yeah, and what we hypothesized was that for the question types, that true and false and identifying and distinguishing between two would have the highest scoring percentages, but it actually looks like application's a little bit higher. And then we also hypothesized that the 3 question types would be better due to just the variety and meeting different needs individually. So that's what you can see in the figures there. But when we ran the stats, it was statistically insignificant. We did the ANOVA one-way test, and yeah, that was mostly due to just the limitations we encountered over the summer, and that was the class size. So they were usually 15 to 24 students in a class, so pretty small. And then there was one that was only 3 students, which is exceptionally small. So yeah, that kind of thing. And then just the different teachers and the different undergrads that were helping the teachers with different topics, and they were the ones who put the Kahoots together. You know, that would just impact the students differently. So we had from 4 different classrooms, 4 different teachers. So that also would have played a role. And then also, since we were looking at pre-recorded Zoom meetings, some of the Kahoot results would have been covered up by the Zoom screen, and that wasn't something we could kind of move around at that point. So that's also something we kind of struggled with. But the importance of the study still remains. Education, obviously, we've always been in it, encountered it, and what we were really striving for was to find out what types of questions and the combination, or how many of them help students most understand and apply what they've learned in class, and just also keep them engaged and passionate about learning. I mean, Kahoot, if you've seen that, it's very colorful, it's very interactive. So that's why we kind of focused on that. But yeah, there's still a lot of potential for future studies with this, with bigger class sizes, with more questions, with more data, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so as you said, our main purpose of this experiment was to hopefully better help teachers or professors in the future in classroom settings, help the students' engagement levels depending on the Kahoot questions and the amount of questions asked in those Kahoot sessions. There definitely be future experiments based off of this one, such as like if we had younger students looking at how their attention span can change depending on the question asked. And as she mentioned, also with bigger class sizes or more questions asked during the session and things like that.
Yeah, so if y'all have any questions or anything.
I have one. Can you like expand more about how exactly the Zooms worked? Because you said you looked at the pre-recorded videos of the classes, but like what like classes were they again, and like how did that process work?
Yeah, so the Zoom meetings, it was just a Zoom to the undergrads and Dr. Harville at Baylor. This was a few semesters over the last few semesters, but all the students were in the classroom with the teacher in real time. This was mostly science classes, and they were going over research projects, how to make a poster, how to write a research paper. They were doing their own little projects as well with different animals and things like that. So that was the topic and what the Zoom was like. So.
It was pretty interesting too, because the Zoom, it was actually like before the whole virus happened. So we were able to look at that when teachers were still trying to figure out how Zoom really worked and things like that. So.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, I had one question.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide like what to do for your project? I'm sure you had lots of options, like as you were coming up with a project with Dr. Harville.
Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting because he had this. This was actually a mini semester in the summer, so he had the students kind of. He told us that he had pre-recorded lectures from previous semesters where his undergrad students were helping teachers from 5th to 7th grade, and I believe he had more grades as well. And then he had each student kind of think of their own question that they would want to study from that information. And then mine and Catherine's and our topics were pretty similar. So then he paired us together and we came up with this. That's how it worked.
Gotcha, thank you.
Look into things that would really help students and help with testing and help teachers provide more answers and just applicable things that they could use in their own classrooms.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because some students did an experiment based off of like the gender of the undergrad, if it was a male versus a female, how the students responded to that. So.
Gotcha, yeah, thank you. Any other questions before we kind of close this session?
Well, thank you guys for listening.
All right, fantastic. So I'll go ahead and leave the link for this session in the chat. Feel free to fill that out and hop on over to your next posting.